We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani, and good to have each and every one of you here with me this morning. Wherever you are from around the world, we're grateful for you because you're helping to spread this message abroad that marriages can be restored and saved. We are in a new series. We're talking about, as I mentioned to you before, for actually the remainder of this month, we're going to be talking about the separation and divorce series. So many people are on the verge, on the cusp of divorce, of separation. And before you make that decision, let us have a conversation with you. We want to invite you into a conversation where we can really take a comprehensive approach to why this happens and how possibly we can avoid it. And so we're doing part 2 today. Yesterday, we started off with when the one who loves you wants to leave. We're going to do part 2 to that and really go deeper into that. But before we get there, as you know, this weekend is our last chance week, and we're excited about it. So we want you to send your prayers forward, your well wishes, your positive energy, because we believe that there's going to be transformation on this weekend. Those of you who are watching for the first time, those of you who are new to the show, who reached out, who found out because you're experiencing an affair, you want to know, what do we need to do? How do we turn this thing around? Well, you need to reach out to us today, set up a discovery call. Let's talk about what your options may be. And it's always good to hear from the testimonies of other people who have been where you are. So take a look at this and we'll be right back.
I'm saying, like, when you go to these therapists and counselors for these short increments of time, it's going to take you years to get to the point of moving forward because you're doing an hour a week or an hour twice a week. So you're actually torturing yourself to get to the point a year from now of where you're trying to be. It just doesn't make sense to pay $150, $250 an hour to sit with somebody for 45 minutes and not even you can't get your life out in 45-minute increments. After that 45 minutes, okay, let's schedule our next session. But then you got to deal with all that stuff that you couldn't get out in the 45 minutes into the next 45 minutes. It just doesn't make sense. Like, this intensive, this makes sense. Like, it just, you get everything out because it is intense. It's not for the faint of hearts. You're going 12, 14 hours a day, or longer, because, you know, Hassani is willing to go as long as it needs to be. Whereas you going to a therapist for 45 minutes for once a week, it's just, it doesn't make sense. You're not going to accomplish what you want to get accomplished as fast as it needs to be accomplished because you're going to torture yourself. You're going to go through torture trying to get to something in a year that you can get through in this intensive. Like, it is what it is. I've had a new reckoning of the money that we wasted going to these 45 increments and nothing changed. So you have to make a decision, just like you invest in everything else. So you want to buy a new car, you want to go to a concert. You need to think, do you want to invest in your relationship just as much?
Powerful, powerful testimony. And I love seeing that couple today because they're in such an amazing space in comparison to where they were when they first came. Because I remember the days when we first started the process and we were meeting. At the time, I was a pastor at a church, and they were coming into my office, traveling at great lengths just for 45 minutes and an hour, and we were dealing with these these issues that they were going through. And after a couple of weeks, I'm like, this is not going to work. We need to do something different. So they made the decision to do the intensive, and I tell you, it was transformational. And since then, doing the Moving Forward program and Foundry, and so there's such a better place. But what she said, it's torture when you're doing these weekly sessions and you only have an hour a week, but you have another 167 hours in that same week to deal with the stress and the drama and the issues. It's just not worth it. So that's why you want to do a deeper dive. And so if that's you and you're like, this is just, we're on the struggle bus, we need something different and something new, reach out to us. But guys, we're talking about when the one that you love wants to leave. Because at the end of the day, for those of you who do not get the help that you need, and you're trying to figure this out on your own, you get to a place where you just can't take it anymore. You get to a place where you're just like, you know what? It would be better just to walk away from everything than to stay in what we are in right here, right now. And so oftentimes people without counsel, okay, or maybe they have the wrong type of counsel. They have Instagram counsel, they have Facebook counsel, they have YouTube counsel. They're going to so many different sources, hearing from so many different voices about what they should do, but none of these people are qualified. They make what they think are the best decision for them. But what happens is it leads to more stress and strain potentially. And so the thing is, when separation is on, I don't know, when you're having the conversation, you're trying to figure out if that's what you want to do and you do it. Here's the challenge. Most divorces are preceded by separation. So technically people are going to separate and then divorce comes, but not all separations lead to divorce. And that's why it becomes so confusing. I think generally speaking, most people assume, well, if we're separating and going in our own separate ways, in our own households, under our own roof, then everything's fair game. We can do whatever we want to do. We can date, we can sex, we can do whatever. We can just be free. We don't have to have the same responsibilities that we had before because I need to get away from you. But the challenge is oftentimes couples aren't having conversations to clarify what they're actually doing, what the agenda is, how they function as a couple or individuals once that separation takes place. And often more hurt, harm, and damage is done in a separated place than when couples are under one roof. Now, the only time that we truly recommend separation is if you feel physically threatened and in harm's way. Other than that, if your agenda or if your objective is to get away because it's just emotionally toxic, and I want to think, I want to process, let's work on it from a distance, then we'll come back together. It's like walking up a hill with 100-pound backpack on your back. It becomes more challenging when you're away, and it leads to more confusion because not enough conversations and clarification is given about what it is that we're actually doing. Now, many people would assume that generally speaking, it is the woman, it is the wife who can't take it anymore, and she's out, and she's either taking the kids or leaving the kids with you. Because when we look at statistics, we know that upwards of 70% of all divorces are initiated by women. But I want to tell you, there are many men who get to the point where they can't take it anymore and they retreat and they leave. We talked about a couple episodes ago how oftentimes men get to a place in a relationship where they just surrender, they just give up, and they just go along to get along. And they've resigned, if you will, from the relationship. And in that resignation, though they're still legally bound and tied, they will move on. But it creates confusion, right? Because there are many questions that begin to linger in the spouse who's been left behind's mind. There is confusion about the future of the relationship. Like, does my spouse leaving mean that they want to get a divorce? Because we never really clarified that. So I don't know what this season is. We're kind of in a stuck place. Does my spouse literally want to get a divorce? Well, number two, he says he wants a divorce, but does he really want it? Because a lot of times in our frustration, in our desperation, we don't know what more to do. And so what we do is we say, you know what? I just want a divorce. And unfortunately, so many people have been threatening divorce for years and have never pulled the trigger. And so for some, it's a form of manipulation and control, or they are confused themselves because they want out of the situation, but then they begin to reflect upon, well, wow, we have spent the last 10, 15 years together. So they're vacillating back and forth. And if they're confused within their own minds, then how could their spouse have any more clarity? So it leaves her in a confused space. Then the next thing is, well, he says he doesn't want a divorce. He only needs time to think. Okay, so wait a minute, you're getting away, okay, packing bags, moving into another location to think, to clear your mind. Well, what is influencing you? What sources or resources are you tapping into? Who are you giving access to your ear? Are these going to be individuals and sources that speak life to your marriage or speak death to your marriage? Will you leave and have more of a reason and justification to not come back in because you got a sense of freedom and you know what it's like to be on your own? Like, these are the things that go through the minds of a spouse when a partner actually separates. Then the last question is, how much time does he want? Right? And what should I do while he's thinking about it? This is the challenge, because if you don't have a plan of action, if you don't have an expected end, if you don't know your exit strategy, it can create more frustration than anything else. Because you're leaving, okay, well, how long you gone for? I don't know. I just need time. And now I get an apartment. And guess what? Now, you know what? I just signed a lease. And I'm on a 1-year lease. So I guess we're going to be separated for a year. So now we allow the landlord to dictate how long we're going to be separated and what impact that's going to have on our marriage. Because now I can't break the lease, because now I'm going to have to pay 1 or 2 months rent. I just bought all this, like all of these things, because we leave in haste, or we, make these knee-jerk reactions that ultimately do not serve us. And as a result, it puts us in a more complicated situation. And the reality is there's a trauma associated with the separation. There's a disruption to your life that happens when two people separate. And on the other side of this break, we're going to get into what that separation is and how you can begin to turn things around. And I hope that this is helping you, because this is where many people find themselves. And we are waging war on separation and divorce because we know that it damages families. So listen, we're going to go to a quick break. Be right back. You're watching the Couples Academy Show.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
Hey guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy Show. We're talking about when the one who wants you wants to leave. This is part of our separation and divorce series that we're going to be doing for the rest of the month. Just a couple questions I want to get to. Slim1515 says, "Good morning, sir. I had an affair on my wife, and we're both in our healing stages, but my wife isn't giving any thought nor energy that she still wants our marriage. Any advice?" Yes, my advice would be, or is actually in the form of a question first, what specifically is the healing process that you are currently going through? Are you doing your own individual healing process? Are each of you working with a practitioner? Are you going to someone together? Are you reading a particular book? Are you digging deeper into God to allow him to heal you? Oftentimes when people say that they're healing, they read a book, they read an article, they, scroll through some Instagram to get some inspiration, and there's no clear path, there's no clear methodology or system or process that they're actually using. And in that process, when two people are individually healing on their own, in their own way, they can easily grow apart because there's nothing that's binding them together. And so that's why we encourage them to do work as a couple and to go through some type of couples counseling coupled with what they're doing individually. So that would be my best advice to you. But all I can say to you is that it's not over. See, you have to understand, even with separation and divorce, it is a process. It takes time. You have time on your hand if you take advantage of the time that you have. Most people do not. Most people engage in so many errors and trials and setbacks and stumblings and missteps, and they wind up making matters worse. Wouldn't it make sense to connect with someone who can help you collapse time, right? Who can help you to know what to do, when to do, how to do to get the best result. So feel free to reach out to us, and I hope that helps. All right, to my Cali Power couple, here's a question. Would you say that sometimes divorce for some folks is hereditary due to seeing family members separate and divorce in droves? I would say absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. This is what we will call generational curses, where it seems like, man, if I look at my family line, and if I go back to my parents and my grandparents and my great grandparents and my parents before them, everybody divorced or nobody was ever married, right? Everybody had a child out of wedlock. Like everybody was involved in pornography. Like there are certain sins that are passed down from generation to generation. And what happens is if you grow up in an environment where you see certain things play out and you're a child and you're impressionable, children mirror what has been modeled for them. And so because mom and dad didn't work out, it's no guarantee or curse on my life that I can't. However, I know in the back of my mind that the possibility is still there, and I have an option. I can do what he did. I can do what she did, or I may suffer what she suffered or suffered what he suffered. This is why it's so critically important that when you're choosing a partner, you dig into their history. You need to know about their family history. You want to know about their parents. You want to know about their upbringing. You want to know about their siblings. What have they been exposed to? What is their attitude? What is their perspective, their belief system, their creed? How do they see the world? Because that there, sir, that there, man, will give you an indication of what you can come to expect in your own relationship. But each of us have the power to break the curse. We don't have to allow the traumas and the setbacks and the failures of past generations impact us today. The buck stops here. And when we stand on the word and we declare that we want something more, something new, and something different, then we can move in that direction to guarantee success. Be the one to break the curse. Okay, be that one. Because guess what? You leave a legacy for your children. And it's not just a financial legacy. You're leaving a relational legacy that they will then begin to look at and say, oh, this is normal. This is what love looks like. This is what marriage is. And so, listen, great question. I hope that gave you an answer. There's so many questions coming in. I'm reading this in real time. I've been in 3 marriages before this one and committed adultery, not knowing why. Now realizing that my past hurts played a huge part. If had healed before, perhaps no affair. That's true. Just ensure and make a declaration that there will not be a 4th marriage, that there will not be a 3rd divorce. One of the things that you have to do is change your narrative. We had a brother come into a last chance weekend, and like when we were doing introductions, and each couple was kind of giving their background on who they are. One of the things he said is, "Yeah, man, so I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, and I had a hard life, and man, that's why I'm experiencing hardship in my like." He kept going back to his hard life and his childhood and his upbringing, which in essence for him explained why he is the way that he is. And I said, man, you have to change your narrative for real. Because if you continue to tap into what the way things were and where you came from, then you will always fall back on that. And that will always be a justification for why you are not doing the right thing. You are not where you came from. Okay. It's not where you come from, is where you're at. Right. And so regardless of your past, listen, you serve a God that is able to do all things, to transform your life, to restore your relationship. And he's given you willpower and intention to correct your wrongs and to plot a new course on life. So we have to be willing, whether it's our personal history or our family history, to allow the dead to bury the dead, if you will, and start from scratch and have something brand new. We have a comment from Sandy P. Sandy, good morning. I'm glad you're here. She says, Cali Power Couple, this is great insight. Past hurts create patterns that have to be disrupted. So glad that you have new insight. Then Slim goes back and saying, we're both are in individual counseling and also couples counseling. We're both are seeking God and we are separate also. Okay, well, listen, you're on the right track. You're on the right track. So listen, know that all things are subject to change. And all you have to do is remain prayerful and hope and pray. Like here's the deal though. Here's the challenge. My question is really a rhetorical question. Are your individual counselors different than your couples counselor? Like, are you going to someone on your own? She's going to someone on her own, and then you have somebody else who's guiding you through a couples process. If so, the complexity involved in this sometimes is that you're hearing from multiple voices. And so my question would be, even though you both are individually healing with your individual practitioner, does your practitioner have a belief in restoration? Are they marriage advocates? Do they have a marriage background? If they're only focusing on the healing, they may encourage your wife or you to say, you know what, maybe it's best to move on, to heal beyond this marriage. So now you're hearing that in one session, then you're coming back in another session talking about restoration. It becomes confusing. And so this is why people tap out and don't want to do it anymore, because they're getting guidance and advice from a practitioner who's not on the same plan or agenda that you two should have as a couple. This is why you got to be careful who you speak into your life and who you give your ear to, because they can speak life to your marriage or death to your marriage. Hope that makes sense. All right, now let's get back into this conversation. We were talking about some of the really the disruptive nature of a separation. Okay, so number one, in a practical sense, there are logistical adjustments required by such a move when someone leaves the home. Right now, you have two residences that have to be maintained instead of one, and of course, that comes with added expenses. So not only does a divorce ultimately, in terms of what you pay an attorney and court fees, cost you tremendously, and some states are more expensive than others, then we're dealing with the ongoing expenses of having to maintain two separate leases or mortgage, having to purchase furniture. Now we have bills that we didn't have before, and guess who's paying? That hits the household, right? So there's a huge financial strain that you experience in a separation because you could not take the time to work through things under the same roof. So money issues are more complicated with separations, period, point blank. Because if I'm leaving, I don't know how our finances is set up. Most of you, truth be told, live separately anyway in terms of your finances. You don't share bank accounts. You don't share expenses. Or maybe you go half on things. You live in a Dutch life. So now you made the decision to leave. Now you got to pay, but you also got to pay what's up in here. So now there's a strain financially when it comes to that. And then there's complexity around tasks for that primary household because you still have children. You still have household responsibilities. Things still get broken, need to be fixed. Contractors still need to come and evaluate certain things. So there's so many moving parts in this process. And if you thought that you were under relational strain in your home, whew, imagine what happens when you begin to separate. And then you got to talk about the emotional cost that this has on the person who is playing the role of the rejectee. The rejector is the one who left the home. The rejectee is the one who was left behind. So whether male or female, oftentimes they are plagued overwhelmingly with a sense of guilt. You're leaving the relationship or you're leaving the home makes them feel guilty. Why? Because they begin to accept blame for your reason to leave. Now, of course, both of you were willing participants in the relational demise, so you both have a role to play, but I feel literally rejected. I feel abandoned. I'm experiencing all these different things. I'm experiencing the pain of abandonment, the pain of loneliness, and solitude right now is unbearable. The fact that I'm forced to spend all of my days alone by myself, all I have is my dog, or all I have are these kids, or all I have is no one. I don't even have you, the one that I'm in love with, the one I want to restore this relationship with. Just the emotional tax, the toll that it plays on me from that perspective. Then, I begin to believe that it's ultimately my fault. I take on all the fault and all the burden when you leave. This is what's happening to the person who's left behind. Somehow, one begins to believe that, they don't measure up. Obviously, I wasn't good enough. I didn't measure up. I was less than. You were seeking for something that was greater than. And that's one of the reasons why you left. If the relationship fell because of your decision to leave, then obviously I was the cause. I was the culprit. This is what's happening in the heart and mind of the rejected individual. And so now then one begins to think, well, man, if I only tried harder, if I only did things better, if I only had more of what you needed, maybe you would not go. So rather than having a comprehensive, honest approach, looking at things from a practical perspective about maybe something's going wrong with you, I take on all that burden, that responsibility, and that guilt myself. And at the end of the day, you just left. You just left. You got pissed, you got mad, you said you wanted a divorce, and you just left. I'm completely unprepared. Life has thrown me into chaos because of what has happened. And there's a huge emotional toll when this takes place. Stephanie says, my husband has held on to a second home for 3 years. He pays rent, so bills won't be a factor when he leaves. But the last 2 days, he has just decided not to come home after we had an argument. I'm over it. Reach out to me. Reach out to me. Let's see what we can do to turn this situation around. Cali Power Couple says, on point, sir. Can't wait this weekend. Healing in the ATL. Glad to see you coming. Yes, this is on point because this is meeting so many individuals, so many couples exactly where they're at. It is traumatic. It is unfair. It is detrimental to your own emotional stability. And I'm telling you, I don't care how your partner is showing up. If your partner is not interested in working on the relationship, they're not interested in going to counseling, you need to get the healing for yourself. And let me tell you, even in situations like this, where it seems as though it's over, it seems as though there's no fighting back or working back from this situation, you need to reach out to us because we have something called the Solo Intensive. That's right. We talk about the private marriage intensive where couples come to us. We talk about the last chance weekend where couples come to us, but we have a solo spouse intensive. And in that process, whether you're the betrayed spouse or the unfaithful spouse, we work directly with you to help you personally get your healing and then come up with strategies to bring your spouse back into the equation. We have seen when individuals initiate a process and are willing to do something, it increases the probability that their spouse will come on board. But if they do not, if they wait for their spouse to change to make a decision, they will be waiting into perpetuity, sometimes forever, and change never occurs. So reach out to us and let's figure out how we can work with you. We do a 3-day solo private intensive, which can be virtual or in person. and it will give you the confidence, it'll give you the competence, and it'll give you the strategy and know-how to fight for your marriage. It only takes one to initiate a process before the other one comes on board. Guys, we love you. We appreciate you. Hope you got something out of today. We'll dive into Q&A tomorrow. No, tomorrow's Thursday. Yeah, we have part 3. We're going deeper. We're just scratching the surface. So be with us on tomorrow. Tell your friends about us. Tell family members, those who are struggling and going through, that they need to show up at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time for the Couples Academy show to get more powerful information, and set up a discovery call if you're interested in working with us. We would love to connect with you. Take care. See you in the morning. Have a great day.